Shalom Yasharallah. First and foremost, I want to say all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem Racha HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of the house of David. Salutations to you brothers throughout the four corners of the earth, teaching the truth in righteousness and sincerity. To you Israelite foreigners, come back home to the truth. To those that passed on serving the Lord, the dead in Yahweh Shai shall arise first. To you sisters who believe, keep encouraging and supporting your brothers out here teaching this truth, and always commemorate the sister who washed Yahweh Shai feet when you read the scriptures. I wanted to talk about humility and the way we as Israelites, and particularly the non-practicing Israelites, treat it. And the reason why I'm saying that is because when you tell somebody to be humble, it's considered an insult now, when in reality it should be, it's pretty much minimum. You should have a humble attitude. It's one thing to have confidence, carry yourself, because the scriptures tell you that we got to rebuke with all authority, but we have to earn that authority by studying and knowing what we're rebuking, right? Because you can't rebuke somebody for something that's not wrong, but you also have to, you have to just know what is actually right and wrong. So this society does not value humility. It actually discourages it, especially us black and brown people. And it's funny because I've had, when I worked in customer service, I've had calls escalated to me as a supervisor or, fake supervisor, whatever. And, customers would tell me, hey, that representative is not humble whatsoever. And it's funny because humble isn't the word. At the end of the day, you just don't want a rep to be rude. But they use the word humble. Like, there's a few times that they were referring to the rep and said she wasn't humble. And it got me to thinking, humility does come with being able to work with people. People that don't know how to work with others, don't work well with others, they're usually very arrogant, proud, and think that they deserve everything. And that's where the lack of humility. Being humble means you have to learn to deny yourself certain things, certain pleasures, certain bells and whistles out of life, right? So, like, for example, I could sit here and say I deserve a lot from my job for how many fires I put out. But if I start going and saying, hey, I want a raise, I want more of this, or I want that, then I'd be pushing it. So you have to be. A lot of us don't know how to be humble. Don't know what humble is. Don't know what humility looks like. Humility is, I can have more if I push, but then realizing that by pushing, you're not being humble. And so, as it pertains to this truth, when we go out there and we teach in the streets, we can't act. We have to exhort the word with all authority, but it's authority given to us by the Lord. I have no authority in and of myself. I'm not special. The Lord has proven time and time again, because when we talk about the great men of One West, how many of them are still in the truth? Now, you would say, dozens of men, but thousands of men was in One West. And you have a few leaders. You had, a lot of those men that had rank, and even some that didn't have rank now have rank. Right? But what's important and imperative for us to be when we're in this faith is humility, and understand that at the end of the day, the Lord is, Lord willing, dealing with us. But the Lord, the minute that we do something wrong, the Lord can knock us off of our high horse. One minute you got men calling you elder. The next minute you got men that should be calling you elder calling you a nigga. That does happen. That does happen. You got men dealing with you with reverence, one minute, and when you're being talked to with that reverence, don't ever let that get to your head, because that's not being humble. Understand that you can still be knocked off of your high horse. And a lot of men in Israel, and y'all know me, I know men throughout Israel, so it's not just one particular camp or one side. You have a lot of men that make too much of their own self. They magnify their office as realizing that, yeah, your office is magnified, but the minute that you are an unfit servant of the Lord, he can take you out of that office and put somebody else in there to occupy that great office. Because we have a duty. This is a job to do. It is our responsibility to be humble and to do things the right way and to teach the truth. We don't understand what we got, and again, humility is a very big key to serving the Lord, because you have to understand how temporary you are. You have to understand that you can be removed from your office. You have to understand that you make a wrong move, the Lord ain't going to be working for you or with you. So, it's just very impressive. I'm sorry, I'm driving while I'm doing this sit down, Car Chronicle style. But, humility is very important. And the main point that I'm trying to make with this video is that humility has now been stereotyped, I guess you could say, as a negative thing. How dare you tell a black woman to humble herself? How dare you tell a black man to humble himself? Now, granted, we're not humbling ourselves to Esau. We're not catering to their whims. But we should be humble. Being humble is a requisite when you're in this faith. Why do you think the Lord loved King David so much? You saw, when you actually read the scriptures, King David was a lot of, he had a lot of energy. When I think King David, I think he would be one of the best football players right now, just because of his strength. When you read the scriptures, his go-getter type spirit. But one thing he wasn't was arrogant. He was not proud against the Most High at all. I think the Lord put him in a perfect position as the youngest of his brothers. And I think that played a big role in him growing up humble. A lot of humility. He faced immeasurable odds against that fucking Goliath. And he put Goliath on his ass. But he was a humble leader. And being a humble leader means that much, that look who's going to be king when all is said and done. King David is going to be our king for eternity. King David will rule over us. So when you look at the scriptures, you want to pay attention to how he moved. He was very humble. When he did wrong, he understood that he had to get punished for that wrong. He fought battles and wars, and people were bigging him up. People were cheering him on more than King Saul, and he never let that get to his head. He still reverenced King Saul. So that's how we have to do in this truth, and have that type of humility. We have to be humble. So this thing about being told to be humble as an insult, that's an insult to the Most High. How the fuck dare you be boastful? How the fuck dare you think that you're better than anybody? Even if the Lord is working with you, remember that the Lord can also not work with you. You know, you got men out here, like I said, man, matter of fact, I know somebody so fucking arrogant. He doesn't just want what he deserves. He wants more than what he deserves. He wants to be blessed beyond measure, despite the horrible person he is. I know somebody like that. Very arrogant, but somehow thinks that God is gonna look out for him. Somehow thinks that things are gonna work out in his favor. That person should be very afraid, because he's pretty much getting everything he wants in this world, which kind of also means that he's probably not going to get anything in the next kingdom. Very arrogant. Some people are that arrogant. They think that they're gonna, what did they say in Scarface? This town is one big, I'm just gonna say, vagina that's right waiting to get penetrated. I know that's not what Scarface said, but you get the point. This town is one big that's ready to get, you know, and I always looked at that quote as just a horrible, arrogant way of looking at it. You know, humility is the opposite of that mentality. I'm gonna take this town for everything I can get from it. That's pretty much what that meant. I mean, you could go deep and philosophical on a lot of things, a lot of quotes. But it's very important, like I said, to never lose your humility. At one point, we were all students, and we're gonna get students. And I gotta be honest, some of my original teachers were very pompous. Very pompous. I mean, the most pompous of them all, I hate to say it because he was one of my original teachers, but a man by the name of Zaquan Malak, very, very pompous, very arrogant, prideful, and you know, I don't know him outside of the truth, but from what I hear about him outside of the truth, he's just a very pompous, arrogant man. He would have that mentality of, this town is one big vagina that's about to get penetrated. He would have that type of mentality. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm in the third lane. All right. But yeah, we have to rid ourselves of these entitled mentalities. At the end of the day, that's what it boils down to, is we become entitled. Like me, I've been in this truth a lot of years. This year will make year number 26 for me. And nothing, thank the Most High, has made me arrogant. Nothing, you know, I'm still, all praises to the Most High, while Yahawashi, I still feel like I'm just a brother. You know, I'm not, nothing, you know, as much as the brother Chief Gabar used to, you know, always made sure I was referred to as elder, and, you know, but I always feel, and this is actually a blessing, to be humble. I feel that no matter what I've accomplished or will accomplish, at the end of the day, I'm still a mortal man. And I can't afford to change that mentality, especially when you start getting older and your body starts breaking down. Because that's where I'm at in life. I'm at the part of life where I can't do the things that I did when I was younger. You know, I can't run like I did. I can't lift weights like I did. You know, so that comes with a lot of humility. That comes with, you know, because if you're too high and then you get to that point, when you start being arrogant and think you're the shit, and then you start getting to the point where you're old, then you become delusional. Like I always like to give this is an example. I know a chick who works out, beautiful. She's 61, about to be 62. I always talk about her. She really should be humble, despite her having a great body. She looks every bit of 61 in the face. but you couldn't tell her that shit. I remember one time she posted something about, if I get in a relationship and I got to pay one bill, I'm getting out of that relationship. And then somebody else commented, your face looks too old for you to think that way. And I'll never forget, she deleted that whole fucking post because of that. I thought it was the funniest thing in the world. Somebody actually told your ass, humble down. You know, she's very arrogant. I mean, extremely arrogant. And that's what it is. Well, like when you're in the spirit, Lord willing, I'm in the spirit. You know, when you have that humility, you check yourself. You never get delusional. See, you got people that are delusional. Another perfect example of delusion and arrogance is people that like the Cowgirls, Dallas. As much as that's going to sound funny, think about it. Those motherfuckers are so stupid. They really think everybody hates them because their team is so great. Y'all was great 30 years ago. Literally 30 years. The last Super Bowl was in 96. I think the game actually was played in 97. But there's still, teams have passed their amount of Super Bowls. So many teams have played. I mean, when Dallas last won a Super Bowl, the Patriots had 0. Now they got 6. So for them to say, oh, but, you know, getting to the seriousness of it, that's delusional. That's thinking you're so great when you're not. When you lost your greatness. And it's funny because now they feel worse than us Giant fans. I'm a Giant fan. We went 3-14 last year and 4-13 this year. Not we, but the team, right? Dallas, I feel better than a Dallas fan when them motherfuckers was 7-9-1 this year. You got to think about that arrogant. Like, you're so arrogant that now you got a better record than us and you feel worse. Because you set your standards. Because that's the problem. It's one thing to have standards, and it's another thing to feel entitled to those standards. And that's a lack of humility. When I go to a restaurant, I want to be treated like a king, but let's be honest, you're not going to go to fucking Joe's Pizza in Irvington and they're going to fucking stop what they're doing and throw rose petals at your feet. That's just not the way it works. You're not going to be treated like a king for a fucking slice of pizza. You know, that's just not the way it works. You want to be treated like a king, or in women's cases like a queen or a princess. But let's be honest. There can only be one king. Nas said it. There can only be one king. You don't have a. That's what's funny about us black and Latino men. We call ourselves kings. We call each other, hey, king, yeah, king. Everybody ain't a fucking king. That's the truth of the matter. Everybody's not a fucking king. Everybody's not top anything. Who the fuck is this cop chasing? But anyway, with that, I'm going to say shalom and, listen, very important, Israel, humble down. Don't think that you're above anybody. It don't matter how much the Most High bless you with. I mean, look at some simple examples. Not simple. We have some big examples of men that grew lofty and proud and puffed up. Look at Comfy. One thing that you got to say about Ariyah? I've never seen that man arrogant. That elder, that great man of the Lord. Never seen him arrogant. But then you see Tazadakia had a larger than life personality and wanted everybody to see his face on the side of a fucking bus, a tour bus. You see the results of arrogance. That's a huge result of arrogance. That guy, that Tazadakia man, I would hate to be his spirit right now and see what judgment he's getting. I would hate that. But, that's why you have to stay humble. What if the Lord brings you in a congregation and that congregation starts bringing in thousands? So you start thinking, or hundreds or dozens. Oh shit, I'm leader over all these men. Look at Sakar. Man, the Guerrilla Hebrew is a big example of getting of your pride and ego and what happens when Israelites start thinking that they're more important than what they really are. He brought so many in, and for him to go out like that, that's some crazy shit. But look at what he did on his way up that I never, even myself, I'll tell y'all, I was deceived too. I gotta be honest with y'all. Very often I stood up for him. Was like, yeah, y'all are sitting here, and honestly, there were videos and things that he said that I didn't find out till after I found out about the pagan worship. After I found out about that, because even when that came out, I was like, yo, you don't know, like I'm always trying to give brothers the benefit of the doubt. Because I know what it's like to be false accused. But, once I realized what it was, this was a very arrogant, proud man. Thought he was beyond reproach. Thought nobody could check him. He thought he could do and say whatever he wanted. And granted, I think part of why I was so forgiving for a lot of things that I did see he did, because he wasn't perfect. I never saw him as a perfect brother. I never put him on anywhere near the level of the elders of GMS or Lions of Israel. I never put him on that level, but I thought for a while, like, yo, this is a good brother. He's doing a lot of great works. But then you also look at some of his fruit, and you're like, damn, some of these niggas is feminine as all hell. I remember that Passover that now I have to rethink, because I believed his point that it was hard to get a venue for the Passover. It still's possible, but now I gotta wonder. But I saw a dude with clogs, and I was like, wow. I saw a picture of a dude with clogs, and I just had to say, this is fucking crazy. This is where Israel is just going way overboard. Them niggas damn near looked at like a bunch of these young rappers, Lil Uzi Vert and all them niggas. You know, but you can chalk it up to lack of humility. He stopped being humble. You know, comfy, larger than life personality. I mean, Nate is actually very careful in his actions. You see corruption on his job, that can always be explained away, because at the end of the day, as a detective, you still have a boss, right? One of these days, he's going to fuck up in Israel, in the truth. And people are going to, I mean, people already know about the Rosicrucians. I just think people don't believe it, because all the brothers that know about it are painted to look crazy. People try to say brothers are crazy, so you can't believe what brothers say. But I know a lot of brothers, like literally, I've talked to a great deal of brothers that were there when it happened. So how are you going to explain them away? Everyone's not a nutcase. Everyone's not crazy. You know, but lack of humility will do that to you. Thinking you deserve more than what the Lord blesses you with. Because there's one thing to work for what you want. Like, I would love, before we get out of here, for me to own something, to own a home or a condo. Right? I would love to own a BMW. So I'm going to work. I'm going to do my job, you know, do whatever I can to stack up money. But the truth of the matter is, I don't feel I deserve it. Like, oh, I should have it. The Most High should bless me with it. No, it's not that. You know, the Lord will bless me with whatever the Lord bless me with. And that's it. But anyway, with that, I'm going to say shalom, and, you know, just be humble, Israel. It's not an insult to tell you to be humble. If you think you belong somewhere, or you deserve something, or you think you're better than the next man, then you have to humble yourself. You have to, something in your life, you have to realize you're not what you think you are. The Lord might be working with you. You might be somebody great in the kingdom, but you also might not be. You might be a great fuck up in the kingdom. A lot of you that think you're so fucking great and mighty, you might be Judas. You know, you might be Judas. You might be one of those people that had to get put to death because you started worshiping false gods in the Bible. You know, so let's not be proud and arrogant. Let's not let knowledge puffeth up too. That's another thing. A lot of you men increase in knowledge. I mean, listen, Gorilla Hebrews 12 Tribes breakdown, or his you know, in his debate with Garfield, that is one of the best 12 Tribes breakdown I have ever seen. And it's up to date, is the best part about it, because, you know, the examples that men was saying in the 90s, you know, you got to remember, Sidney Poitier, nobody knows who Sidney Poitier is in 2026 unless you're older. All these young people don't know a Sidney Poitier. They might know Wesley Snipes. So you got to come with dark-skinned examples. You know, when you compare Yahushua, he would be like a Sidney Poitier. Now you got to say maybe, then you got to find an actor who's at the very least not a sodomite. Because you compare him to Ashton Sanders, for example. You say, yeah, he would look like Jesus today, you know. But then you see, you know, pictures of him doing sodomite shit, or that movie Moonshine, where he was, you know, doing something with Jarrell Jerome from When They See Us. But anyway, on a serious note, you know, being humble is the way to be. Being arrogant will get you destroyed in this life in many ways, and maybe even the next one. With that, I'm going to say shalom.